Hey guys, Amiar here with hashtag Jeff's girlfriend Thorns to show us a gold fine Crusader build that we're going to use to clear the new greed realm in the PTR. So let's take a look first at what gear I'm using. The first thing you should know is that I'm using the gold find passive on every single piece of gear. So my total gold find is 14,623% on Torment 6. Let's start with the gear. Sunkeeper. Sunkeeper and Devil Tongue are the only weapons that can roll gold fine, and we want to choose Sunkeeper because it's way better than Devil Tongue. So look for one with it can roll up to 80 gold find, strength, holy damage, and elite damage. Next is our shield. I'm using an Aberli Charo just because it's the only shield that I had that was decent rolls that I could roll gold find onto, because none of my other shields have gold find. But other acceptable shields are, you could use a Jecking Board and Blessed Shield and Hell Skull, Hallow Bulwark, anything. In an ideal roll, you would want to add on to that as cooldown reduction. But I can't do that because this is just a shield, not a Crusader shield. Next, let's look at my icon set. We're going to start with the boots. Basically, you just want your typical strength, vit. In addition to that, you can add in movement speed or all resist, and then skill damage. Now, I don't have the correct skill damage on here. It's shield bash, but you use what you got. Next is pants, strength. You want strength, vit, and all resist, really. But I don't have any that also have gold find on them. So like me, you might just have to use whatever you have that has gold find on it. Next is the gloves. Ideally, you want crit chance, crit damage, cooldown reduction, and strength along with gold find, and I got lucky and had a pair of those. Shoulders, you want strength, vit, cooldown reduction, and really you want area damage as your next stat on there along with gold find. But I have percent life because once again, I take what I got. Helm of a Khan, you want strength, vit, crit chance, and a socket. And if you want, you can swap vit for skill damage. And alright, we'll look at the other pieces of gear now. We have a ring here. It's the Avarice Band. You can only get this from Act 3 bounty bags. So Avarice Band, if you look, it says each time you pick up gold, it increases your gold and health pickup radius by 1 yard for 10 seconds, stacking up to 30 times. So every time you see an individual stack of gold that puts a number above itself, that will add 1 yard to your pickup radius for 10 seconds. Next is my Royal Ring. Ideally, you want one with strength, crit chance or crit damage, cooldown reduction, attack speed, and gold find. I obviously don't have that, so I'm using one from one of my int characters that actually has gold find on it. Next is Reaper's Wraps. And I chose Reaper's Wraps because, I also have Custarian wrist guards, but the amount of experience that you get is just not worth it. So I think Reaper's Wraps is a much better value for your bracer slot, just because you can stay on top of your resource and you're never going to have downtime when you're doing damage. So for this spec, we're doing fire damage, strength, vit, crit chance. And the last 3 pieces are 3 of my favorite pieces for this spec. Kimbo's Gold. It always rolls gold find, and it also has a chance to roll gold find again as the random secondary, which I luckily got here. So if that's the case, and you're also lucky and get crit chance like me, you can roll crit damage onto it. So I did that. If you don't have, we'll take a look at my Templar's Kimbos. This was my old one. If you don't have the double gold fund roll base, you got to roll to it. And if this is the case and you have an amulet that's as bad as this Kimbo's, it's probably a good idea to use another amulet that just rolls gold find. So you can get up to 80 on any amulet. But if you got a Kimbo's, use it. Next is Gold Skin. The reason why this is great is because it's 100% gold find, and it has a chance for enemies to drop gold whenever you hit them. And they drop pretty considerable stacks when you're in high torment levels with this much gold find gear. And this works really well with our last item, Gold Wrap. You just want basic belt rolls on this, no skill damage. And it always comes with gold find. And the coolest thing about this is you gain armor for 5 seconds equal to the amount of gold picked up. So if you pick up 50,000 gold, you get 50,000 armor. And this continues to refresh the buff every time you pick up gold. So if you pick up 50k and then 4 seconds later you pick up 50 more k, you've now increased your armor by 100k. And that will keep going and going and going. And so what you end up doing is you end up getting into like a whirlwind effect with Avarice Band, Gold Skin, and Gold Wrap. Because Gold Skin, you're just constantly knocking gold out of guys, picking it up, increasing your radius, and then Gold Wrap is making you super, super, super tough, which is really cool. So that's the gear. We'll take a look at our Templar gear here. Templar, you're just basically running all the same stuff. Sunkeeper, Kimbo, any shield really with gold find on it. Unity, and I'm using an Oculus ring because it's got more attack speed, just so my Templar just hits stuff more often. He doesn't really do anything, but yeah, so I choose Unity because if you get into a really bad situation, you can always swap out your Avarice Band for a Unity ring and, you know, take care of that situation and then continue on with your run by switching back to your Avarice Band. Now, the way that gold find is calculated with your Templar is you get 1/5 of your Templar's gold find added on to your gold find. So his 1/5 of his gold find is 69%, which is added to my gold find. And it's not multiplied through the higher difficulty gold find multiplier. It's just added in. So it's not really that much, but you know, any amount is good. So next we're going to take a look at the spec. The spec that I'm using is kind of a starter spec because it uses hammers. So Blessed Hammer Burning Wrath is basically your main damage dealer that you're just kind of constantly be churning out. And the reason why we're using this and not something that's higher damage like Fist of the Heavens is because it doesn't consume a lot of wrath. And if you notice, in my helm I'm using a gold find gem, and what that does is it tanks my cooldown all the way to 39%. So cooldown is not very high for Akarat's champion, so what we have to do is manage that by not having a skill that eats up a ton of wrath during our downtime. Now the next, besides Steed Charge, I'm using Steed Charge Endurance just so I can get around. Besides that, I'm using Phalanx Bowman, and that's going to give me good single target DPS on any goblins I come across that are alone. And it can also help clean up mobs that are just kind of straggling. Next is Heaven's Fury Blessed Ground, and the reason I'm choosing that is because it hits the most mobs out of all the runes, and I want to do that to stack up Firestarter. And the last one is Consecration, Shattered Ground, and we're doing that to also stack up Firestarter. And I'll show you some goblin kills later, show you what all these skills look like working together. So that's the skills, that's the gear. Next I'll show you the Paragon. You're probably not as high Paragon level as me, but if you are, I'll tell you the order in which you should spec into things. The first thing you should always do is max out your movement speed. So add this to your boot movement speed if you have it, and it needs to equal 25. Just throw the rest into strength. Offense, you want to start out with cooldown reduction, critical hit damage, and then crit chance, and then attack speed if you want. Next, defense, I would start with all resist, then life, and then armor, because when we're using gold wrap, it gives you a lot of mitigation through armor. So percent life can help increase our toughness more. Finally, utility, guess what the first one we're going to choose is? It's gold find, followed by area damage and resource cost reduction, then life on hit. We want to choose area damage because if we encounter a goblin that's surrounded by a ton of guys, area damage can help kill the goblin by doing damage to all the other mobs. Now, if you are looking for goblins, because the whole point of this build is to kill goblins, get into the goblin realm, get as much gold as I can from gold find, and leave. So if we're looking for goblins, there's a couple zones that are really good for it. The first one is Northern Highlands. Northern Highlands is really good. Then I go to Cathedral 2, Halls of Agony 2, And then finally, I end with Core of Ariat, which is in Act 3. So let's start out and see if I can't find some of these guys in here. Northern Highlands. Now, if you have a Swift mount, you want to use that. Swap from your Sunkeeper to your Swift mount. We're just going to ride around and kind of just clear this zone and make sure we're seeing everything. One thing you want to make sure that you don't do is try not to aggro the goblin accidentally. So here's our goblin. Gonna swap to Sunkeeper. Now you see my toughness is 106 million. I'm not gonna die. So our goblin's dead. I'm standing in the middle of so much stuff. Toughness is 289 million. Nothing was gonna kill me during that fight. Now the reason why my toughness gets so high when I kill a goblin is he's always dropping gold. Always dropping gold. Like every time you hit him, he drops gold. And when he does that, it increases your toughness through gold wrap, increases your pickup radius, and increases your toughness. Then I can pretty much just sit there and annihilate the little guy. Oh, I'm gonna get hit. We'll do one more, see if I can find the goblin cast 2. Steed charge, or sorry, Swift mount for steed charge. And they can hide behind these little pillars and stuff, so you really want to make sure you're thorough when you're searching. Okay, so I unexpectedly aggroed him, and Firestarter is down, so this is looking very poor. So because I accidentally aggroed him, I didn't have Firestarter ready. So all of my damage has not been stacking dots, but it looks like I'm going to be okay. Yeah. Now, Halls of Agony apparently always has a goblin that spawns in it. The bad thing about Halls of Agony is it's pretty big. Oh, here he is. So he can be tough to find. If you're doing this with a group... Aw, dude, he just got in that corner. Yes. If you're doing this with a group, I don't suggest trying to split kill the goblins, because goblins are pretty tough to kill by yourself in a 4-person group on T6. So if you see one, you want to stop, collect yourself, invite your teammates, and then you want to go kill the goblin together. But if you can split kill it, go for it. That's going to be the end of the video. So thank you for watching, and I hope you guys can create a gold find Crusader and go annihilate the Greed Realm and make tons and tons of gold. Peace. #Jeff.